About a week ago, I got in the Citizen Weekender Brycen. I did a quick unboxing, let you guys know I'd be doing a review after I've used it for about a week. So let's talk about this watch. Starting with the case. The case on this watch has a pretty large and strong presence at 44 mils, 22 mils between the lugs, and 51 lug to lug. Now, for me, that means it's about as large as I would wear on my 7-inch wrist. It certainly catches the eye, and it has a sporty presence that I appreciate while still maintaining some classiness. This is a watch that I'd be comfortable wearing no matter the occasion, and I understand there's going to be a lot of people out there who will want a less sporty watch for formal events. The Weekender Brycen is rated for 10 bars of water resistance or 100 meters. However, I personally am not comfortable taking a watch with a couple of push chronometer buttons for a swim. That's something I'll leave for my 20 bar Casio. The case also has a little bit of thickness. It's sitting right around 12.08 mils, and I would say 16 millimeter thickness is really about as thick as I like for my build. Then again, I'm really not a tuna guy or someone who loves monstrosities, nor am I the biggest guy at around 190 pounds. I think the 12 mils still manages to be thick enough that it provides somewhat of a masculine feel without having an obnoxiousness to deal with when wearing. The crystal on this unit is a mineral crystal. To be honest, I'm not surprised at this price point. The glass is super clear, and that isn't something I would expect with very low-end sapphire, unless there's a great AR coating or even multiple coatings, neither of which you should really expect at this price point. The off-angle readability really is quite good with this crystal and the dial. I don't lose visibility until about 30 degrees off axis. So if I'm looking at a 90 straight down at the watch, it is crystal clear, pun intended. And if I'm looking at 45, it is still extremely legible. Overall, I'm pleased with the crystal on this watch. In terms of bands, my general preference is specifically for two types of bracelets. One is the silicon style, where I'm a fan of Barton's Elite product, that lineup from them. The other is metal bands, whether that be stainless or titanium. But I really don't like Jubilee, mesh, or rice styles. I know I'm picky, but this is our hard-earned money that we're spending on a hobby, and so I'm perfectly comfortable being that guy who's super picky. With that said, I'm a big fan of oyster-style bands, and so I wasn't really sure how I would like the bracelet on this watch. As I've not seen anything quite like it, I'm not even sure exactly what it would be categorized as. but maybe someone like Teddy can enlighten me. It reminds me of a rounded version of the AP Royal Oak, where the links aren't as flat, and it has a different integration into the case where you can change out the bracelet to other types of straps. It's not integrated that same way, even though the very top link perfectly matches with the case. So I was pretty hesitant about the bracelet when I got it. I wasn't disappointed though. Even though I was hesitant, and I think that I enjoyed it partially because the links were a little bit thicker and didn't give off too much of an engineer style band. It makes it a little more sporty while still maintaining something of an industrial feel. It doesn't hurt that I found it quite comfortable. The two metal studs that attach each pair of links seem to allow the band to just sit nicely on my wrist, even though there's no micro adjustments available. I was surprised that it seemed more comfortable than a lot of the affordable Oyster bands I had tried, even though I don't think it looks quite as good as expensive Oyster bracelets. I wonder if the comfort is because of those two studs, allowing some flexibility and movement with each link. Who really knows, but I can tell you it feels really good on the wrist. And while there's no micro adjustments, there are a couple half links on the watch should you need to fine tune it more. Now the dial here is a really nice hunter green. I've seen this on third-party sites. I'm not sure if they are authorized dealers or gray market, but I've seen it listed by third-party sites as green tapestry. Sometimes they'll even write that in French. Now, the dial doesn't actually have much in the way of depth. Specifically, actual depth changes. And there's no applied appendices or anything to help with that, but Citizen hits a few nice tricks they've got up their sleeves that help provide the illusion of depth without it actually being there. So it feels like there are 4 kind of depth levels to this. The bezel, which then drops down to the dial, which then drops down to the inner part of the dial. Of course, that's an illusion, but it's a pleasant one nonetheless. And then you have some changes that are provided from the dial face that does drop for the chronometer. Also, the date window does drop, which we'll talk about later because I'm not a big fan of. By using these little tricks like painting the outside rim of the dial a darker green and the inner dial a lighter green, your eye is tricked into thinking there is a depth change there, and it's really quite pleasant. So from the bevel to the outer rim to the inside of the dial and then to the actual chronometer dial at the top is really providing depth changes that you're not getting elsewhere. Granted, some of that is an illusion to the eye that's made with the different color paint, but it is pleasant. All of the tick markers are clear, and the minutes hand always seems to fall on them on my watch. I am a big fan of seeing that in an affordable watch. I really don't like to see excessive sloppiness, whether it's fit and finish or whether it is all of the tick markers not lining up. The reason I don't mention the seconds hand is because the orange hand on this unit is actually used for the chronometer in order for you to record how many seconds, while the darker dial up top will reflect the minutes when using the chronometer. You also have a 24-hour dial, which I thought was convenient when first setting up the watch and trying to gauge if I was at 1200 or 2400 hours. Normally on a date watch, I simply need to go until I see the date adjust to get an idea of where I was, then back up to adjust the time correctly. Obviously, I don't want the date changing when I'm sitting down eating lunch at noon. With that said, the date window is one of the things I was not and am not impressed with. For me, it's super hard to read. While the depth isn't bad, the cutout for the window is almost the exact size of the writing and lets in almost no light. And this means I can barely read the date. I'm forced to adjust my viewing angle and move the watch away from me in order to be able to see what the date is. Not a big fan there. It's not terrible, but you will have to adjust your wrist to see it, and it is difficult to read. Let's talk about the bezel quickly. It is fixed, so limited functionality if you're planning on diving, which again I wouldn't do with push button chronometer. But the bezel itself is quite nice. It is a painted aluminum that has a satin-like finish and complements the dial really nicely. Because of its simplicity and attractiveness, I really don't have too much to say about it. Overall, what do I think of the watch? I think it's a steal for the price. And it's my understanding this version is being discontinued, hence the blowout sale. So you might want to act quick. Again, I'm not saying this with an agenda. I have no affiliate program. It makes no financial difference to me if you purchase the watch or not. But if you are looking for a low maintenance watch that can be worn all the time and your wrist isn't smaller than average, I would highly recommend the Brycen. I already talked in the previous video about Eco Drive, and as I get older, the convenience of having a solar powered watch where I don't need to change the battery. For me, that is a huge factor. I can wear this watch and not worry about a lot of the standard maintenance that I would have on my more expensive automatics. I don't have to worry about readjusting it. I don't have to worry about battery changes. All in all, if these are things that sound good to you, if you're looking for an affordable everyday watch that can be sporty, that can be dressy, then this might be the unit for you. Let me know in the comments what else you'd like to see reviewed, what other watches you're interested in, what other EDC gear you're interested in. And let's see if we can't get that in and check out those units. Let's go from there, and until next time, guys.